Most of the lessons in this course are very self-contained, and that means for many of the videos we're starting with a fresh installation of the framework just so I can illustrate a particular feature or two. But sometimes it's helpful to see workflow. So I thought in this video I would explain why I think testing is so important, not from the point of view of teaching you how to test, but just showing how it can be incredibly useful in an existing project. So chances are, if you are familiar with me or have been watching this course, then you know that I built a generator tool that allows you to quickly generate resources and scaffolding and models and such. It can be really helpful. But now I've decided that I need to make a particular change. So to help illustrate what I need to do, let me give you an example. Using the generate tool, I'm going to generate scaffolding for a book, and a book should have a title and maybe an author. All right, that's going to go ahead and generate all of the necessary files, but the only one I'm interested in editing is the controller. So when you use generate scaffold, what that's going to do is generate a book's controller as well as all of the code to demonstrate how you would go about showing all books in one book and updating and deleting a book. It can be really helpful for prototyping as well as just learning how other people would do things. However, after talking with some people in IRC, I've decided that rather than referencing layout content, instead we're going to use blade extensions. So I need to make this change without breaking all of my tests. And to take things a step further, I want to write the test first so that I know exactly when I've added the functionality and it works like I would expect. So what I want to do here is basically, rather than this layout content, I just wanted to say return, view, make. We're not going to use layouts anymore. Instead, I want to use blade extensions to import the master page. So to make this a reality, I'm going to switch into the package, Workbench. A Workbench is where you can create new custom packages, push them up to GitHub, and then make them available through Composer and Packagist. But anyhow, I have a test for generating controllers. Right here, controller generator test. So you can see there's basic stuff such as we can generate a controller using just the default template, but we can also specify a custom template so that I can generate a basic controller, but also a scaffolded controller in the same class. So the one we want to edit is test can generate controller using custom template. But before we move forward, let's make sure the tests pass. CD into the Workbench, into the generators tool, and I will run PHP unit, and yes, all the tests are passing for this controller. Now, let me show you quickly what's happening here. So we're going to mock a few of the dependencies for the class we're testing because we are testing in isolation. We're not trying to test every class that gets touched. We just want to test a controller generator. Next, we will create a new instance of it, and now my argument, or my declaration, is that when I call the make method, and I pass in the name of the path to create, and then I pass in the template that should be used, what I expect to have happen is that the generator will call the put method on the file class, and it's going to send to it that same path, and also the data that it writes to that file should be equal to the stub that I've created. And this is a very helpful way to do your testing, especially for stuff like generators. I create a stub that demonstrates exactly how it should look when it's generated and compiled and all of that. And then when I call the make method, I simply ensure that it compiles everything down, replaces the vars, and ultimately writes this exact content to the file. All right, so let's take a look at what that looks like. We have stubs, scaffold, controller. So stubs, scaffold, controller. And you can see here, this is what I expect a generated scaffolded controller to look like. But now, like I said, we're going to get rid of using layouts. So I'm just going to begin by editing the stub to show what I want it to look like. So we'll get rid of that. Next, we're going to look for every occurrence of this and simply return, like so. And I believe that should be everything. No longer are we referencing any views. You don't need to worry about any of the content here because remember, it's just a stub. And in fact, I've given it a .txt extension just to remind myself that, hey, this isn't an actual controller. It's a stub to verify what ultimately gets put to the file. So now that I've made these changes, I'm going to run the test. And as you might expect, now it's going to fail because it's saying, hey, your stub doesn't look anything like what we wrote to that file. So now I know that I need to fix that. Well, let's see how we might do that. Within the source directory where I actually write the logic for this, there is a generators folder where I keep the templates. So for example, if I'm generating a master page, here's the template it should use. but sometimes I need to perform search and replace operations. So for example, when we are generating just a basic model, this is the template that it uses, and then it simply replaces the name with whatever the user specifies when they run generate model. That's how that works. In this case, though, I want to edit the scaffold controller, like so. All right, so now I'm going to get rid of all of that. And once again, we're just going to search for every occurrence of that and remove it. So I'll save it. And if I run PHP unit again, nope, still not working. So I don't even have to generate a scaffold to prove that it's not working. I can see with a single command, which I could even automate, that it's not working like I expect. So if I scroll to the top, I can see, nope, no matching handler found, which means, hey, once again, we expected the stub that you provided to match what we wrote, but it didn't. And in fact, I did this on purpose. Remember from the other one, we have to remember to return the view. So once again, using multiple cursors, I'm going to update each of those instances so that it returns it. All right, now, if I run it again, we're back to passing. So now I know whenever somebody tries to generate a scaffold, it's going to look exactly the way my stub suggested. Let's do a quick test to make sure that that's the case. I will do PHP artisan generate a scaffold, and this time let's just do a scaffold for cat. Sometimes when testing, I do cat and dog, just so I have something simple to work with. But a cat, no, it doesn't have a title. Let's give it a name. All right, so now that's created everything but the layout file because it didn't want to overwrite that. That's okay. And now if I open this up, you can see, yep, it looks exactly like our stub suggested because it had no choice. If it didn't look exactly like that, then our test would have failed. And this is why I'm a big advocate for testing. It's exactly why I'm writing a book on it. And this will certainly appeal to you because it's very much related to testing in Laravel applications. So you can learn how to test your controllers and your models, even things like commands. But that'll be out in about a month or so. Until then, stay tuned to Tuts Plus Premium for more Laravel screencasts.